Hello, we're back with another GTN Coaches Corner. In case you've missed it, we've started up a fortnightly series in which we will answer your questions for you. Yeah, that's right. You can throw in and send in any questions you like, preferably triathlon related, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible for you. So if you do have any questions, drop them in the comment section below this video or below any video for that matter. Just use the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. So let's dive on in. We've got great questions to start off with from Ricardo Gonsalves. Hi, GTN Coaches Corner. Would you please help us with some stretching exercises that could help with the aero position on the bike? I really like this one actually because it is an area that is so often overlooked because let's be very honest, the aero position is not a natural position that we're all used to holding, especially for long periods of time during a 70.3 or an Ironman distance. So you could just ride in the aero position and hope that over time you'll adapt and improve, might do. Or additionally to that, you could do some stuff off the bike that again might help with holding that aero position, but also might actually enable you to hold a better and more aerodynamic position. So I do have some stretches that may help that I have done over the years that are not only helpful for allowing you to get into a good aero position, but also when you have been in the aero bars for a long period of time, just helping to relieve some tension. So first, very simple stretch, sitting with a nice upright posture, nice straight back, and then very lightly grabbing hold of the back of the head and then pulling down ever so softly. And you should feel a nice stretch down the back of the neck and into the back. Again, do this very gently. You don't want to be pushing this hard at all. A similar stretch, again, same position, straight, upright posture, and then with one hand reaching down to the side of the chair, grabbing hold of that, and then with the other hand reaching over and grabbing the side of your head, and then just pulling down ever so softly again. You should feel a nice stretch down the side. This one's particularly useful for when you have been in the aero bars because a lot of tension can build up around the shoulders and the neck region. Now moving away from the neck, you may want to think about your hip range and flexibility because ultimately when we are in the aero bars, we are squeezing up that hip region quite a lot and we're demanding quite a lot from our glutes. So this one is specifically looking at glute piriformis region and range. So lying on your back, legs out straight, and then you want to bend your right knee and place your right ankle onto your left leg just above the left knee. Now slowly raise your left knee up and you may want to even grab behind the thigh of the left leg and pull that towards you. You really want to try and keep your right knee and your right ankle aligned rather than knee popping out. And you should feel a nice stretch down the right glute. Then you obviously swap over to the other side. Okay, next one. Jamie Furman has said, how do I do a better job of listening to my body? Even when I'm beat, I have a hard time saying no to a workout and constantly feel the need to be in tri-shape, struggling to take any sort of significant break. I also have a hard time separating eating from working. Well, hi Jamie, firstly, well done for reaching out and being so open about this. I reckon there's actually quite a lot of people out there that can relate to this. Now, I'm going to start by tackling the first question before getting on to the second. So ultimately, you need to remind yourself of why you are training and doing triathlon. Are you training to train or are you training to race? What I mean by this is, are you just going out and killing yourself in every workout but forgetting the bigger picture, which ultimately is to try and improve yourself so that you race well? And it's amazing, so many people fall into this trap, including myself on occasions where I've just got so het up on hitting every workout despite feeling rubbish. Now, the best athletes out there, and this may interest you, will quite often tweak workouts and maybe even miss workouts to make sure that they don't overdo things and ultimately perform their best come race day, accepting that you aren't up to a workout or you may not be feeling your best is absolutely fine. And that's what the pros very often do. Also, you cannot be in peak shape all year round. I think this is a big misconception and misunderstanding. Again, if you look at the top athletes out there, they'll peak for a couple of races in the season. It is impossible to stay in that peak shape for an entire year or even for 6 months straight. Your body needs to build up to these peaks and then recover after them. So that's really important. You do need to factor in recovery periods and maybe even mini breaks in the middle of a tri season, but definitely making sure that you take a good sustained break at the end of each season. Again, every pro will tell you that they do this. Now, going on to this final question, forgive me if I'm wrong, but my understanding from this question is that you're struggling to just justify the need for food unless you have exercised. This is a really important, sensitive subject. Again, congratulations for just reaching out and being open about this, and I reckon there's probably quite a few other people out there the same. Now, obviously, if you have gone this far as to accepting that this might be an issue, I would certainly recommend the next step being seeking some professional advice. Whilst I can advise, I feel like this is something more serious. So if anyone out there is find themselves in a similar position to Jamie, then please do seek some professional advice and remind yourself again of why you are training. Are you training to train or training to perform, which ultimately we hopefully are all doing. Next question from Jeremy Mill. How do you work an FTP test into a training plan? Now this is a good question and one that I've received so many times over the years. Now, an FTP test is a pretty big deal, and you obviously, anyone wants to do them well. You don't just simply want to throw them into your training plan and hope for the best. So do you ease off in your training for them, or do you have easy days after them? And well, if you start throwing both easy days in before and after, that's pretty much a week written off in your training plan. So I can understand the conundrum that you're facing here. Now, in my opinion, an FTP test and the results from that need to be realistic. If you punch out some absolutely phenomenal results that, let's be frank, you're only going to do once in a blue moon, you're going to have a tough time repeating those numbers in your training or perhaps even on race day to some extent. And that's going to be really demoralizing, but also you're probably not going to get the most out of workouts if you're trying to do sweet spot workouts at numbers that are just ludicrous. Now, normally I'd recommend avoiding any hard run workouts the day before an FTP test, just so you're not knocking out any of that power and you haven't got too much fatigue in your legs. And then also on the day, the FTP test is the priority workout, so you're not doing too much before it and probably won't want to do too much after that. So yes, you're going in somewhat recovered, but you shouldn't be absolutely scrapping all your training for the week. Again, probably the day after, you're going to feel pretty tired, so you might want to keep that day nice and easy. So in summary, yes, you do want to ease off to a degree because you want to perform well and get some good numbers. It is a test at the end of the day and a marker for yourself, but it shouldn't be a full-on taper like you might do for an A race. Okay. Brilliant. Next question, Deans6571. What's a good running cadence? I've only been running once a week for the past year, and I've been doing 6-kilometer runs. My average pace is 6 minutes per kilometer, I assume that is, with a running time of around 35 minutes, and with a cadence of around 157. Not sure if that's good or bad. They go on, but in summary, they're just asking about, is 157 good or not? Now, this is an age-old debate. Now, you've likely all heard of the talk of elite marathon runners with an ideal cadence of 180 steps per minute. Now, we do need to remind ourselves that these elite marathon runners and this 180 steps per minute study came from a race scenario when they are running at, in some cases, 3 minutes per kilometer and quicker. So they're going at some pace there. Obviously, when we're heading out on an easy run, or they even are heading out on an easy run, you wouldn't necessarily expect them always to be at 180 steps per minute. It's much harder to do that at a slower pace. So whilst I'm accepting that 180 steps per minute is perhaps unrealistic for some of us, I also do accept that there is a link between a high cadence and being more efficient and economical. So if you do have an obscenely low cadence, then yes, you probably should strive to improve it. To answer your question though, Deans, 157, it's not terrible, I would maybe say try and push into the low 160s and see where you go from there. But you don't want to also start absolutely scuppering your running and your technique to do that. So do make sure it's incremental. Again, we've got videos over on our channel that can help you with drills to help improve your cadence. But hopefully that's helped you today, just a little bit of an idea. So you're not doing anything hugely wrong there. Daniel Shigert, I try to use running zones in training, but when is the best to use various methods of calculating the zones? Percent of max heart rate, lactate threshold heart rate, pace, perceived effort, others, question mark. Another great one. Now this one really depends on what you're doing. Now personally, if I'm just heading out for an easy run or an easy ride, perceived effort of exertion is absolutely fine for me. Give yourself a break from looking at the numbers, or at least that's my mindset on it. Plus it's just good also to use that opportunity to get in tune with your body and the effort that you're putting out. Now for the more focused sessions, I tend to then look more at pace and power with heart rate as something I sort of check on the side. Now, I'm not saying this is the answer to your question, this is just how I work it. That then, by having the heart rate on the side, allows me to check my fitness for those paces. So I run at the same pace week in, week out, and my heart rate's coming down, might indicate that my fitness is improving. Also, it may indicate that something untoward is going on. Perhaps the heart rate starts going up, but I'm holding the same pace, so I'm in training really well. It might suggest that I'm becoming fatigued or overtrained, or I'm slightly ill. So very helpful. Now, in terms of which ones, to answer your question here, in terms of which kind of parameters you use, max heart rate, lactate threshold heart rate, etc. Now, max heart rate zones are okay and probably the easiest for anyone to jump into the sport and just pick up, because most people can probably quite quickly find out their max heart rate or know roughly what their max heart rate is from various exercises they've done over the years. However, it's not always the most accurate. It is a little bit more rough and ready. Lactate threshold heart rate is far better in my opinion. However, it will require a test, and quite a hard test. Again, we've got a video explaining that, and I'll drop the link for that in the description just down below this video. Hopefully that's answered that question. Okay, and now for the final question. I really like this question. It's from Mr. Braindead101. Nice name. How do you schedule a training plan that allows improvements in all three sports while still fitting normal day-to-day life in? Now, there's a number of different ways of tackling this, and I'll try and explain them all briefly as best as possible. So when I was coaching, if an athlete approached me, I would always start by trying to understand as much about them as possible. Who they are, what they do, their day-to-day routine, their work, their life, etc., etc. Because ultimately, you want to make sure that your training is fitting in around your life, not squeezing your life in around your training. Otherwise, you are just setting yourself up to fail. You want to make sure that you are as consistent as possible with your training, and the best way to do that is fitting the training in around your life. So be realistic with the amount of time that you do have available and you can devote to training. And then from that, you can work out how many sessions can you do in a week. For instance, are there 6 opportunities in a week to do some training? Great, in which case now we can start divvying that up into the 3 different sports. So, say there are 6 opportunities, I would start by splitting it evenly. 2 swims, 2 bikes, 2 runs. And hopefully that'll work. Now, with that, you can then highlight key workouts in each of those disciplines. And I'd probably suggest in this instance, you'd say, all right, I'm going to do 1 key swim, 1 key bike, and 1 key run workout. And what I mean by key is it's probably a bit cheekier, it's a bit harder, it's a bit more focused, that you're going to get some quality out of. Meaning that you're arriving at each of those sessions with a focus, knowing what you need to do and what you're trying to get out of it, and nailing it and trying to do it as best as possible. Now, you're probably wondering, but what happens if I've got a weakness? One of the disciplines is slightly weaker or substantially weaker than the others. Now, that is where you can start tweaking with things. So rather than evenly splitting 2-2-2, for instance, you might say do 3 swims, 1 bike, 2 runs. Okay, so you're just focusing on that swim, perhaps being the weaker discipline. You might not necessarily want to do that every week because you're only biking once a week. So could you do 3 swims every week and you alternate between 1 bike, 2 runs, 2 bikes, 1 run, or you do 3 swims one week and then 2 the next week, 3 the following week. So just be imaginative with it and tweak it. The other way of doing this with the weaker disciplines is actually doing a focused block and almost trying to improve it once and for all in one short blow over sort of a month or 2. And by doing that, you basically will focus on that one discipline, keep the other 2 ticking over in the background. You're not stopping them completely, but perhaps doing far less volume. You're maybe cutting the harder workouts from them, and then really focusing your attention on the others. So perhaps again, using the swim as an example, you're doing 3 or 4 swims per week and you've got some hard sessions in them whilst the biking and the running's mostly easy. And then hopefully after that longer block, 4 weeks to 8 weeks, you have improved substantially and then you can go back to that nice equal split across all 3. Hopefully I've explained that as best as possible. So many ways of doing that. If you do have any more questions on that, I'd be delighted to try and answer them, so please drop them in the comment section just down below. And any other questions for that matter, please do get involved. We're really enjoying doing this Coach's Corner and helping you guys out. We're getting so close to race season now, so I'm sure these questions are going to come in thick and fast very soon. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If so, please do give it a thumbs up, give it a like.